reflection on 20 years of multi-party politics, the role of young people in building a democratic, united, and prosperous Uganda. We must not forget that. But for our specificity, our topic for the panel is an interesting one. I hope we shall do it justice, and I'll give it some context. The topic is a futuristic outlook of multi-party democracy in Uganda, indigenous versus innovations and tools. Now, it's an exotic, sounds rather complex, sounds very academic, but I will invite my panel here to break it down and, lessen the sophistication, the too much sophistication in it, and bring it home. First of all, this is a very important symposium, and I will not overstate that. As chairman of the panel, as a moderator, I want to welcome all of us to pay attention to the discussions that are being brought forth, and just a bit of reflection on the context of our discussion. Uganda's journey towards multi-party democracy, like Professor has said, has been shaped by our rich indigenous governance practices and modern political systems. Currently, we stand at a crossroads though, because now we are talking about tradition meeting innovation, tradition meeting new tools of democratic engagement, and the future of our democracy really depends on how we harness this, the tools that we have in our hands. And the indigenous roots of democratic governance had communities relying on consensus, dialogue, leadership chosen by elders or community assemblies. These practices fostered participation, accountability, and conflict resolution grounded in cultural values. We had roundtable meetings, usually led by elders, opinion leaders, guided debates. There were fireplace conversations, and NIMD is trying to reintroduce that as well, and there are discussions going on at the fireplace. But there was also a sense of community good. That's very important for us to mark and note as we go into the discussion. Picking from Professor's keynote presentation, indeed the keynote, he talked about now we are looking at more pockets, money, that's why we want to go into especially political office. These traditions emphasize the values of inclusivity, dialogue, respect for elders, and collective decision-making, principles that still resonate in building trust and social cohesion. There was community good. So, we are talking about modern tools, and that's what we are going to be discussing. We are talking about things to do with Twitter, WhatsApp, LinkedIn, Facebook, or Google Groups, name them. Mobile voting now in Makerere. Those of you in Makerere, you know about now digital voting. These are transforming how we engage in politics, data analytics, e-governance, online petitions. You have followed what is going on with the Gen Zs in Nairobi, for example. Those are your fellow young people. Radio debates are tools for empowering citizens like never before. But, as I turn to the panel, I want to warn. These tools have both sides. They are also dangerous and are easily prone to being abused. They can build you, but also destroy you, depending on how you use them. So, my panel, turning to you, you have listened to Professor and interesting discussions therefrom. I want to start with Mr. Lubowa from the Social Democratic Party. Professor, while winding up, talked about, he painted some gloomy pictures of politics of identity rather than ideology, politics of tribe, of religion. Can this be done away with, in your view? Let's start from there.
Thank you. I'm Lubo Henry. I'm standing in for the Right Honorable Matthias Mpuga. He's the leader of the Democratic Front. So I'm representing the Democratic Front. The Democratic Front is not a party in itself. It is a frontline organization that houses different political parties, the SDP inclusive, houses civil society groups and individuals. And after next week's official launch, Charles will know the extent of the Democratic Front. Honorable Mpuga is in Soroti, so he was not able to be here because he had to be there for purposes of the launch of the Democratic Front. He sends apologies. Having said that, I have been part of this multi-party struggle for some time. And to be able to reflect on the future outlook of multi-partyism, you also must walk the extent of the fight for multi-partyism in this country. I must tell you that I was chairman of the UYD in 1998 here in Makerere. And having been chairman of the UYD in 98 here in Makerere when I did my first degree, we interfaced with a lot of politicians who are very powerful today. And I want to tell you as follows. One, when the NRM came here in 1986, they did not want functional multi-partyism. And that is where the story starts. Professor did not touch that. I just want to remind him that legal notice number 1 of 1986 was to the effect that political parties will not function beyond the boundaries of Kampala. And that is the cradle of problems of multipartyism in Uganda. And we can define later, after 1995 constitution, there was an insertion in the constitution article, it was called Article 269. Article 269 was to the effect that it tightened the screws of legal notice 1, which banned political parties beyond the boundaries of Kampala. That was the first reign of terror of political parties. I'll tell you the second reign of terror. But that was the first one. People were beaten because the law said at that time that whereas parties can function not beyond the boundaries of Kampala, they were not supposed to do or engage in activities that would undermine the development of the movement. Now, the development of the movement has now metamorphosed into the current NRM. So we wanted to develop a multi-party system that is now in existence, but you are killing its growth, yet it was a reality. There were political parties. There was the DP, there was the UPC, they had issues, but the law, the constitution was binding, and the state would unleash all its apparatus to ensure that that law existed. And that happened up to 2005. But there was another scenario that is interesting. In the early 2000s, we did not have the NIMDs. We did not have these interesting organizations, Welcome Our Dear. We did not have the NIMDs. But surprisingly, the youth at that time, the 2000s, the 1990s. And I wish to welcome Honorable Senator. There was no NIMDs. There were no platforms like this. But there were platforms at that time that grew to nurture youth. And one of them was the Uganda Young Democrats. There was also the Uganda Young Movement. Now the question is, why were they vibrant at one time, and why were they crushed at another time? Because if you know why the NRM was not interested in their budding young organization of the UIN, you also know the extent of the road or the problems parties are facing. Because these organizations, in the absence of supporting organizations like the NIMDs, did a very good job of training and nurturing young leaders. I'll tell you, when we were here in Makerere, the competitions for leadership, group president, chairpersons, and other leaders were very, very competitive, but based on ideas. Leaders like the Honorable Norbert Maus, who later became national leaders, the late Olanyas. They are leaders who went through those organizations, and at that time they had values they stood for. And when I look, Mr. Dongto, when I look at the current setup of the NRM Secretariat, and if you give me time, I would count one to one. Every person in the NRM Secretariat was at one time a UYD. So you would ask, why was the NRM not interested in developing their youth organization, but very interested in poaching from the opposition youth group or the leaders that were nurtured without money, that were nurtured with all the poverty that was, and they're now doing their work at the Secretariat. So I want to end that one at that, but I wanted to take you to give you a reflection of what happened then. Okay. Fast forward. I want us to look at the determinants.
1 minute.
Oh, the determinants. You just give me 2 minutes, I'll be done. Determinants of the outlook. Now, they are what we call unresolved issues. Unresolved issues are the key elements that will determine the future of multipartyism in Uganda. And the first one, peaceful transfer of power. Now, we have never had a peaceful transfer of power since independence. Ladies and gentlemen, if we don't resolve the issue of peaceful transfer of power, then our multipartyism will be chaotic. Because you know, everywhere transitions have failed to be handled properly, it is chaos. And if you want to know whether we shall have a stable multipartyism, look at how transition is going to be handled. And I think you can understand what I'm talking about. 2, the limits of the military in the power matrix. We have an unresolved issue of where the military starts and ends. You all know before we had police, but before you know, we started from IGP, the IGP, the president started appointing the IGP who was military, police, and before you know, they started entering operations. Now, even at recruitment and these usual operations of police, you find police side by side with the military. And even in the simplest civil engagements like youth elections, you'll find the military. Now, we also need to resolve that unresolved issue of where the military begins and where it ends. Because if you don't determine where the military begins or ends, you will have a chaotic multi-party future, because yesterday in Parliament we had an issue. Now the military wants also to preside over civil matters. They want to determine whether the decisions you made to protest were rightful or wrong. So I think the role and limits of military will determine also how we handle them today, will determine the perfect future of multipartism.
Mr.
As I wind up,
allow me first move to one of your colleagues, because we have given you already 6 minutes, but my intention was we use 3 minutes for each.
And you didn't indicate. Had you indicated, I wouldn't
it's always good standard practice to yes, so that we keep it conversational.
I give way.
Please, thank you. I'll come back to you certainly. Angelo, I am still interested in us unlocking, or disabusing the young people's perception of the kind of picture that Professor painted, politics of identity rather than ideology. Can the young people, these leaders of today, and also going forward, future leaders, can they be, and how can they divorce themselves from politics of identity and go for issue-based politics, as Professor put it?
Thank you, Charles. The Lord is good, and all the time. Thank you. I wear very many hats, but I actually love being a student. Yesterday I came to listen to Right Honorable Mama Babazi, because I hadn't seen him in a long time, and I heard he was speaking, and I knew he had something good to say. I wasn't disappointed. Today has also been equally exciting. I guess, for those who came late, especially those from the academy, you missed the professor's presentation, and that was truly exciting, and I would have been more comfortable, Charles, if I had remained as a student on the other side. That said, again, in the spirit of the academy, it's a university, and it's a university teaching hall, you will agree that the question that Charles asked was not answered by my colleague here on the left. If that had been an exam, Professor here would fail him. He was asked whether or not you can get rid of identity politics from our political establishment, right? Can tribe and religion be abolished or replaced with ideas? This is what the professor is grappling with. The answer is yes, and the how is what I want to address now. In 2013, I was privileged to be offered an opportunity like this to give a lecture about political transition in my own space. So I was doing what the professor was doing. And the title of that lecture was Why Uganda Needs a Constitutional Crisis. Because the only way you get out of the kind of fix that we're in is if there's a crisis so big that it completely upends the political system as a whole. Because the problem you're dealing with is not how to make small adjustments to the conduct of politics. Of course, the professor talked about the history of that, where it came from. And Right Honorable Babazi yesterday tried to explain that following the Uganda crisis, they had a system called a no-party democracy as a response. That no-party system, and here I'm going to reveal my politics, that no-party system was a homegrown ideological response to the way Uganda had been set up as a polity. And our professor went through the struggles during independence and some of the tensions, including the geopolitics of the time. But then, Uganda went from the putative monarchies, the struggle under British colonialism, the response of Ugandan professionals, and trade unionists. But after independence, we all know what happened. We had a crisis, very much from the beginning. We hit 66, a major national crisis. The army he's talking about got involved, courtesy of Milton Obote opening that door. And then we had a military government after that, and civil war. Now, if you take the big ideological questions, which the professor has said don't even matter today because you cannot tell, I think apart from Mohammed Seriko, who's started a party that's based on an ideological platform now, what anyone stands for. Today, the politics you're getting into over the last 20 years has simply burdened the state with a top-heavy government, 500 and something MPs. All of you here have relatives who may be raising money for the elections. I was in conversations this week about that too, because I have friends who are running. I was actually in a conversation with the minister who was trying to raise money, and he, in his constituency, just for the NRL primary alone, he's trying to raise 1.2 billion shillings. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a system you want to reform. This is a system you want to get rid of. Okay? You want to get rid of this system because it's not working. The no-party system, after the civil wars, was trying to establish simply one aspect of the management of society, which is peace and stability. And it's my core belief that we are procuring peace at the cost of what the professor was talking about, social transformation, economic development. Anytime you spend money on such a big political system, there are 1.7 million electable positions in Uganda, almost 5 times the size of the civil service. Do you want to reform that system or do you want to get rid of it? Okay? So my lecture about why Uganda needs a constitutional crisis was to say, don't have another election. Don't go into another general election. It is a complete waste of time and resources. It will not introduce new ideas how to, for example, trading our system of peace, which is expensive because we're paying people to be peaceful. Okay?
What do we do in the meantime if we don't have to go into another election?
We will do what was done in the 90s, which is elect a constituent assembly and restructure the government.
Because that's what we need for a new constituent assembly.
Basically, because that's the only legal framework you can do to peacefully reorganize the government. If you're going to reduce the size of parliament, deal with the question of how do you keep the military out of politics, resolve the question of whether you want to separate state and religion as an ideological question. All of those things can only be done in a constituent assembly. So that would be my solution. And by the way, finally on the question of the military, which now yield, which you raised, there are models on how to peacefully separate the military from civilian life, but they have to be legal. In a constituent assembly, you can say, fine, we can spend maybe 4% of the GDP on resettlement, limit the powers of the executive with regard to military operations, send the army back to the barracks by popular consensus. As we are going now, just to go into the future, if you don't get rid of this political system, you can't bring into being a politics of ideological discussion. And I want to conclude by saying I have never feared religion. I'm a Catholic, okay? I don't go to the ballot and say I'm going to elect someone because they're Catholic. Never come to my mind, okay? I also don't fear the fact that I'm a Mahdi from West Nile, Moyo, okay? I think that's part of my heritage, it's okay. Here in Uganda, I'm a cultural monarchist, I support the Kabaka. I'm not afraid of that too. This thing shouldn't stand in the way of you being a decent human being.
Okay.
Okay? And embracing ideas of progress. So, with those few words, I thank you for this.
Thank you very much. Before I bring in Shamim, allow me to recognize the presence of Honorable Muhammad Nsereko, our current MP for Kampala Central, my MP, my brother and my friend. Glad to see you, and you're most welcome. You missed the great keynote presentation of Professor Balonywa. It never leaves one the same when you listen to it. I hope it has been recorded for those who missed it. We also have in the room Honorable Fred Bill, former MP, current Secretary General of the Uganda People's Congress. Thank you very much for coming. We have Mr. Osborne Turia Singora, Executive Secretary, Interest Groups with the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development. A great actor in the youth movement, and thanks for being here. As Gabriel Iguma stepped out, we have Gabriel Iguma, maybe has stepped out, and Dr. Rengabu. When they come back, I will recognize them accordingly. Shamim, to you, you are a candidate already, and that makes my question the easiest for you, from picking from Professor Balonywa's presentation and also from what Angelo has just said. Are you presenting so that young people can learn from you, your colleagues, in your manifesto and program to the voters? Share with us how you now practically presenting a program to transform the people. And even graphically, when they were showing some of those bad pictures, the ones of the school buildings and classrooms on the sewer line is actually in Shamim's constituency. Very interesting. So I was whispering to her and I said, I'm going to judge you. The Americans do what? The first 100 days? Tough one, but that's just an aside. So tell us, can someone, a young person, walking away from politics of identity, right into an election and telling people, the voters, this is my program, regardless of whether I am Muslim, Catholic, Uganda, Alur, whatever you are, I can do it for you.
Yes.
Can it be done? How?
Thank you so much, Charles. Good afternoon to everyone that is here. My name is Shamim Nambasa. I'm the 87th Guild President of Makerere University. As Guild President here, 2021 to 2022. And I think it has been long overdue because now I'm seeing quite a lot of new faces. So that goes to show that I have grown. I think so. I'm an aspiring candidate, and I'm aspiring to be the woman Lord Councillor of Kawempe South. The interesting bit about the place that I wish to represent is that it has quite a number of ghettos, quite a number of slums. I speak and I wish to represent a place that is composed of 13 parishes. We have Bwaise, and I know when many of you hear someone say Bwaise, what comes to your mind? It's going to be floods. When I talk about Katanga, what comes to your mind?
Malnutrition and dysentery.
You know, a lot of things that are actually not good. When I talk of Mulago, of course what will come to your mind is the huge hospital that you see. But behind these huge hospitals are slums and people that sit every day without something to do. All they do is spend their lives drinking, and possibly because they can't afford to buy a sachet of alcohol, Uganda Orange, that is 1,000. But then they cannot afford to buy quite a number of other things. And on quite a number of occasions, I have seen people raise questions and say, why is it so cheap? Why is it so affordable for us Ugandans to get access to alcohol? that then goes to show us that maybe the state we live in has been built to enable us to be able to afford a certain kind of lifestyle that does not lead us in any particular direction. So when you ask me the question, can we go beyond the politics of identity to the politics of ideas and ideology, I actually do believe that. I must state that I'm a member of the National Unity Platform, and clearly I'm running under the National Unity Platform. I expected a hand clap for that. Because we go quite right.
Let them clap and clap properly.
Yes. It's not easy to be a member of the opposition in the regime that we are living in and the environment that we survive in. So when you ask, can we go beyond the politics of identity? I believe that we can. For me, the issue then becomes, it is not a problem for me to say that I am Shamim, I'm a Muslim. It is not bad for me to say that I am Nambasa, I'm a Uganda from the Senene clan. It is not bad for anyone to say where they belong. It is absolutely okay for us to embrace our cultures and where we come from. And that is the problem that I have seen. That in the current day politics, people are then transitioning and making it seem like it is very bad for us to say where we come from, for us to be proud of our origin, which is actually not right. The issue comes in when people want to use our belongings or our origin to cause the divide and rule, to use it against us, to use our origins as a way for us to be divided. I have seen on several occasions, and I think the most recent is where we saw the CDF put a post and say, I have Eddie Muto in my basement, learning Nyankole. For me, I think that was intended for us to have some sort of fights between us, for us to be able to start to have discussions around tribes and the divisionism that comes with it. And I am glad and proud of my generation that we were able to see through that and say, we are beyond the politics of identity. We want to see fundamental change. So for me, to say that it is okay for us to be where we belong, it is important for us to identify that who are the perpetrators of this perspective, who are the people behind pushing for this divisionism. That when people see a Muslim, what comes to their mind first is that Muslims are terrorists. And that is something that they continue to push every now and then. That even when we see news about a certain bomb, that there has been bombarding in a particular place, you'll see people jokingly say, if you are Muslim and you have beards, try to hide. If you are Muslim that is living in that area, find a way to leave that place. Because that is the perspective that has been built over time. And it is not our generation that has actually done that. So what is incumbent upon us is that as a generation, we must then find our way out. And it is said that as a generation, each generation must, out of relative obscurity, discover their mission and choose whether to fulfill it or betray it. And so our mission as a generation is to see fundamental change, which then goes beyond the identity that actually many people are trying to push. And I appreciate that our generation has seen beyond that. We have gone beyond the politics of identity. So when the Mr. Msevens found their push, and I continue to tell my generation that they chose to take to arms for them to have fundamental change, it is then incumbent upon us as a generation to identify what our push is going to be. So while you sit here, try to find what is your push for us to have fundamental change. So when I come to my campaign, for example, I look at what challenges are we faced as the people of Kawempe South. Mostly the people that I wish to lead are people that do not have jobs, are people that are suffering from unemployment. I have so many young teenage mothers. So as a leader myself, I serve as an example. And even when I meet these older women, I tell them, wouldn't you wish for your daughter to be a doctor just like you have seen Shamim? So for me, even as a leader, I have to serve as an example. And then I go ahead to tell them that, you see, we are battling with an issue of rubbish. We have a lot of garbage, and these people are charged for this garbage to be taken out of their homes. But you're charging this person who does not even have what to eat. So what do they resort to? They get this rubbish and throw it into the drainage systems. And then when it rains, their houses are actually going to be the ones that are affected. So I am saying to them, that this rubbish can be recycled. This rubbish can be put to good use. We can have industries that are recycling these plastics, that are using the biodegradable rubbish to make gas. So I'm telling them that the garbage that we are dealing with should not be a problem, but instead it should be a solution. It should be a source of income. It should be a source of employment in case we have industries that are established to recycle this garbage. It should be a source of, products that we get out of these industries. I go ahead to tell them that we have so many young people who have been skilled, but they do not have where to start from. They do not have where to work from. And we have seen so many legislators, and recently I had a talk show and they were saying, we are appreciating the government. It came up with a policy that says, young people that are starting businesses have a tax holiday of 3 years. But this same policy goes ahead to say that these businesses should be worth 300 million. So while the government is pretending to be helping us, at the end of the day, they are putting clauses that are locking us out. And who is speaking about those things? I wish to be the voice that speaks out for the young people.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam President. Let me come now to Belinda Amanya. We are also reflecting on the futuristic outlook and looking at the indigenous tools, indigenous channels versus the innovations currently going on and current tools that we need to further our politics, future politics. I want you to reflect and share with us the kind of potentially rich networks that young people need to build, and that is a network that is more diverse in terms of ideology, in terms of big thinking, big thoughts for growth and transformation of our society. Share with us, I have been made to know you also engage with young people at the East African region. How do you do it? What should be the learning points that we can have in order to succeed as future leaders?
Thank you very much, Charles. I would like to just go a little back to where Professor Balunwa ended. She talked about the various classes of the politics back then and the political party structures. But most importantly, if you're to look at what we are having today, is not politics of maybe religion, tribe, but politics of individuals. That we have one face. If it is NUP, we have one face. If it is NRM, there is a particular. If it is FDC, so at the end of the day, they're just heads and heads and heads. And therefore, if those were eliminated, a party may fall and crumble, or the people do not have where to start from. But as the young people, if we had to actually grow, we're talking about networks, then it must come to know that we in ourselves all carry potential, which is not locked and unique or exclusive to an individual. And that is where so many people have come up together. Yes, you want to push one person, but his or her agenda is not spread out to each and everyone. And therefore, at the end of it all, you remain puppets, you remain dogs, you remain used, and your voices are suppressed. Coming down to networks, what do I believe or think actually works? I think the best thing for us to understand as young people is that there's been a divide. There's been an age divide. There's been, there's a time when a congregation and a statesman stood up and said, one of the problems we're having in Uganda today are the young people, and therefore if we're being termed and looked at as a problem, then it is high time we change and stop to look at ourselves as problems, stop lamenting. Yesterday there was so much of lamenting. Oh, we the young people, where do we start from? Where do we? But my view of life is that we are all fully equipped with potential as long as we're ready to unite. Where do we start from? I don't believe in this whole notion of political parties. I am NRM, I am FDC, I am NUP. I think these are ways to separate you. A small story, when I was joining Bulu University and when I became GRC and the person who was coming in for presidency, there were a couple of political parties The one who went through, Dr. Alfred Anyama Belaina, was a NUP candidate. But by then, there is no way you tell me NUP. Many people have an idea of their disruptive, their what, and that is what I honestly had by then. But the moment this man did not look at me in that form and said, I am going to appoint you as Vice Guild President, even when I had not applied, because we sat and he told me people actually applied, people actually paid. But when we sat and did individual analysis of who was capable, and with people actually at the Secretariat, they said you would be a compatible person to serve with me as a Vice Guild President. And at that day, at that time, it changed my perspective that as young people, I cannot beat her because she's noob. We look at ideology, we look at what you front and the good that you're bringing. Because at that point, he did not care whether he saw me with the NRA or ANT group. What he was looking out for is, in fact, the call came that we have analyzed and seen the platform and the foundation you've raised. We think we can work with you. And therefore, that should be a starting point. The party of colors and who and so is the supreme leader of this should not be a message we carry. Ours should be what is the common goal, what is our shared challenge, and how do we deal with it. And then from that point, we can now look at functionality. One of the challenges we actually face today is that I think as Professor was submitting, he talked about how everybody has one song. But if you came and asked a particular group, okay, we have a challenge of education, he showed us the education system. What is your manifesto on education? What do you think should be the alternative plan that should be raised for the education? Many will go mute, many may get lost, or try to re-chant what has already been established. So as young people, this is my call to you. We are blessed in various ways. There are medics, there are those in the legal fraternity, there are those that are in the skilling and jobs. Can we all unite, put our minds together, be thought leaders, and build and craft something in our capacities? Everybody has taken us to be the cheap labor, even when we have gone to school. They never regard us for the professional labor. They want to send us to TVET, what. But you find somebody also had like your 2 degrees, but the only option is perhaps go and be an office messenger because we do not have a place for you. Then at the end of it, oh, why did I carry the 2 degrees? Why did I spend the 4 years in a university setup? So now going back to what is practical or what we should do, can we mobilize and say, we have a challenge with the education system? If as young people, and I'm glad we have leaders that I imagine can say, okay, we are starting up a committee as young people, concentration is the education. What do we think works? Comparative analysis. What have other countries done? We carry a position paper and say this is well researched, because the other problem is youth are full of rugambo. You just want to talk, but the one who drives the narrative is the one who is prepared, is the one with the data to influence and inform what they do want to have. So can we be more structured? And then finally, it's a call to strategy. We may not be able to hold guns. They told us His Excellency President Museveni and the colleagues went to Bush with 27 guns. I do not know how to run a gun, but perhaps I can put my thoughts on paper. I can speak. I can mobilize and put everyone together and say, let us start with this. I may be talented in this way. Can we drive this here? So can we strategize with what we have? Let's split in various committees. If you're good at mobilization, you're good at this, the budget has been out, how many youth are sitting and saying, but there's a problem with this. How about we advocate for this? Than just being there, chanting and saying things that are not leading us to anywhere. So that could be my thought, and I do believe it is possible to leave this and shift as long as the people that are young are ready to disassociate from the foundation that has been laid, that is only dividing us further, and look at the Uganda as it should be, as we want it, and not the Uganda that we have today. Thank you.
Brilliant, no doubt. If I have time, I will ask you a follow-up question on how then, if we have to discard the organizations, political organizations, because my reckoning is that they are important. I look at them as vehicles, maybe to use an analogy. You cannot go to your university in Gulu I cannot go to, if I want to go to Soroti, I cannot travel to that place. I must use a vessel. So I look at political parties as vessels. Your idea is that we need to discard them, but unite. So I would want to know what the alternative is.
Right now?
Sure.
Well, my alternative is, yes, you need them as vague. We need to be placed somewhere. I talked about strategy. We shall not just emerge. But even as we are there, it shouldn't be a matter or a limiting factor. But however, as we use the word vehicle, it should be an accelerator to us first to say, you know, we are having these ideas and strategies. But as young people, call your friend in NRM and say, what is your perspective on this? We how do we
you will be labeled a sellout. They will say you have been bought.
And
voters will say, for you are okay with that.
For us in ecological party, you're very much welcome.
Thank you very much. And so finally,
But I am painting a picture of the realistic challenge we have as a country. The kind of noise that it has enveloped our political system. He says not in a political party. He still doesn't have an MP in parliament yet. Yourself. Are you a member of IPOD?
Well, certainly for as long as
Not
I'm
yet.
MP.
Not yet.
I'm MP, then I'm a member of IPOD. Our party becomes a member of IPOD, isn't it? Because then it has representation. That's something we shall talk about.
We shall talk about it. I'll come shortly to you.
Whether representation of the people is only at parliament or even at local levels and structures of multi-party development. Okay. But we shall talk about it.
We will, certainly we will. So, but I was painting for you the real crude picture in my view. I don't believe in it, that's why I term it crude. And it's really failing our politics, and it is one of those things we really need to have a conversation about. The politics of labeling, and you say, what do the Nigerians say? When you give the goat a bird, or you label something a goat, even if it is a hyena, the intention is to eat it. You understand? So I think that is what it is about, but you appreciate that. Okay, I like the discussion on networks amongst diverse groups. Let me come to Sharon. Sharon, you are a leader at a university. So I want to ask you about education, your thoughts about a transformative education that skills, education which is holistic, and produces leaders like you, better leaders for this country's transformation agenda. How do you think that can be achieved? Do you think we have to discard the current education system that you have benefited from?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sharon Atuhaira, the Guild Speaker at Chombogo University, but also the Speaker of the Rwenzori Sub-Region Youth Parliament. I am very honored to be here. Now, two things that we need to look at. The ideal versus the real. So many people bring to us the ideal, yeah? They tell us this is beautiful, this can be implemented in this kind of way, we can have this achieved in a short period of time, we can have this rolled out in the whole country, we can make sure that this works, we can invest the money, but what is the real? We have a new curriculum that everyone praises in books. When they come to big conferences with SC, with all the food that we are eating, like in this one, with all the people dressed up in suits and looking nice, they defend this curriculum. But when you go deep down to a school in Adjumani, when you go deep down to a school in Fort Portal, that one looks closer. Yes, when I say Fort Portal, it's a tourism city, it's closer, you can think development is there. Do they have the computers that they say that we need to use? How are those people being assessed? Yeah? So, in as much as it's beautiful, maybe we can hope that it's going to give us results in the long run. 20 years, 15 years, I do not know. But for now, I cannot say I'm going to defend this kind of curriculum in the kind of environments that we are in. Perhaps if we were in the US, where all this technology is at our disposition, maybe we would say, oh yes, we're going to have this. Yeah, the professor showed us pictures of one school and another school. We can't be using the same metric to assess those schools. They are very different, yes? But look at the transformative leadership that we are all looking for, that we talk about. How is this being instilled in the minds of the young people? Yeah? Starting from the household. I mean, my father would buy me sweets to make me do things that my mom wants me to do when I don't want. Yeah? That is not a problem. It was motivation. But when you grow up, you realize that now the youth are being paid, they're being given 50,000 to vote for a leader. No, it did not start there. It started back then. It started with the values that they taught us back then. Perhaps if my father convinced me, I'm not saying he's a bad father, I love that man very much. If they convinced us otherwise, maybe we would not have the corruption that we are having today. Yeah? So for me, is that we need to assess what is real vis-a-vis what is ideal. We look at the political parties, yeah? We would want to associate with what is having the ideology that aligns with us. But I want to prove to you that people, the guild leaders will align with what is going to give them a win in an election. In as much as I want to, let's say, align with NRM, and I know that deep down it cannot give me a win at Chambogo University as guild president, I will not. I will go to look because I know that I will get this win that I am looking for. So now we are driven by our interests, yeah? And that is why, like Belinda told you, like the panelists yesterday said, that if you ask them what do they stand for in regards to health, what do they stand for in regards to education, they will not tell you because that's not what brought them to that particular space. What brought them was either winning, what brought them was either the bread that they were being given, what brought them, and that is what we talk about tokenism today, what brought them to that particular political party was the job that they promised them, that look, if you support me here, you're going to be an RDC. And wow, I want a job, I want my family surviving, I want my family thriving. So definitely I'm going to be screaming your name, and after your job, I do not care what else matters. But then that brings me to innovation. You know, institutions are the centers of innovation, and that is where it starts from. We're looking at multi-party democracy. We're looking at the future of what this looks like, and we cannot take innovation away from it. We cannot take away media platforms from this. We cannot take away social media from this conversation when we talk about innovation. But I want to ask a question that someone can think about. How do you think that an app that was developed in Silicon Valley is going to take care of the needs of the people of Uganda today, that people are centered on maybe culturalism, people are centered on unity, but this app was centered on individualism and capitalism to get money. So if the youth are going to be innovative in the spaces of politics, in the spaces of multi-party democracy, we need to look at what they can be able to do in the spaces of tech. How are they using technology? For example, Twitter, how are they using the spaces of Instagram or Facebook to form their ideas, yeah, for the good of this country? Thank you.
A great challenge there. I want to thank you for that. How are they using it? Are they using it to abuse each other? Are they using it to destroy each other? And yet they're supposed to be networking for better growth. Thank you very much. Let me come to Honorable Nsereko. Here is a guy who goes to Parliament and says, I don't understand all your parties, no FDC, the majority party, NRM, you know, DP, UPC. I don't understand all of you, but still I need a vehicle, and starts the Ecological Party of Uganda. Is it called EPU? Echo. And but there are real issues facing the young people of today. We have been tackling them. Professor has talked about them, and there are so many. Like I said, unfortunately, you missed them. But Professor Balonua mentioned, politics of tribe, politics of religion, politics of youth, politics of popularity, yes, individualistic politics. Then there is the big animal, the cancer in the room, politics of big corruption. Because what Angelo is talking about, if you're mobilizing for 1.8 billion shillings to run an election where we know you're earning, and we know that you will not earn more than 1.5, that is an allure for corruption and outright theft. You are definitely going to the house to deal and not to enact laws for the welfare of this country. How should this and that politics bars these young people from participating in it. So, in your reflection, how should we get out of it? Should we dismantle the system like Angelo is proposing? Should we say there are certain things we can mobilize? And what tools should we use to mobilize? What innovations should we put in place to overcome those challenges? There are many, I'm sure we all know them.
Thank you very much, Charles. The youthful ladies and gentlemen in this audience, plus the panelists. I've enjoyed your discussion and I've learned a lot. And I would like to say that I'm proud to be engaged in this discussion. Angelo is someone I admire, he knows it very well. But I've found admiration for more other people on this panel. And I would like to say that the ecological part of Uganda opens up doors for all of you. You have such wonderful ideas. And this is the country we need, There is no blackmail, no propaganda, no demonization, and there is no politics of identity here. The outlay here just speaks volumes. Diversity, whether in gender, religion, background, tribe, etc. They are the youthful, they are those that are past the age of the youth, but joined politics as youth. Because I remember the multi-party you're talking about is where I participated first when I was at university here as the Secretary General of the North Side, saying we should not go for multi-party politics. I was at university and I was the Secretary General national of that side that was saying no. So that can tell you that the youth that want to track our record and be part of participation, it starts from self-belief. If you do not believe in yourself and your abilities, no one will give you even the chance to display your abilities. So, when one of the panelists was talking about her having contested in Guru University, that means she stepped forward on the platform. If you don't step forward, no one will recognize you. I was making an engagement with presidential candidate Mr. Magezi on TikTok the other time. And I would like to say, please give him a hand. I would like to say, don't worry about anyone who ridicules you. I'm proud of you as an individual. Many people might wish you away, laugh at you, because people like to demonize young people. But what you've taken is a bold step in your life. And history will judge you fairly. You will see what is coming up for your future. So, the biggest misgiving is the inability for the youthful people to rediscover their fundamental ability and step forward and say, I can be. And if you rediscover that and say, I have the courage to stand forward and put forward my ideas, no matter what everyone will say, don't worry. Don't listen to what they are going to say. Just treat it as part of feedback, and then you say, okay, I'll act. Thank you for your advice. I remember having phoned Nambasa here. She was still in Arizona. As a young girl, and I told her, you're going to be a leader. True or false? And there you are. Because my lenses were not where she wants to go, which vehicle she wants to use. But good is good. Good is good whether it's in Loop, NRM, FTC, political party, EP, UPC. And I want you to always say EPU, not to say Equaro. Ecological part of Uganda, and you know our slogan? Mpankuwe. That one. Yeah, you all laugh.
That give me, I give you.
Mpankuwe. It's not transaction. Because I didn't say percentage. I said Mpankuwe. And you can translate it in the language. Because if you don't give me a chance, how then do I serve you, Charles? You understand?
Just when you say it in law, it means an exchange of a deal.
Miami.
Miami.
Miami. That's it. Miami is okay. Is that now, however much you want to construe it in a different way, that's the reality. I'll give you the services every time. So, that is the nature of real politics. It's based on promises envisaged in our manifesto, and then delivery. And hence you will be judged upon that. Therefore, the challenge Comrade is talking about, the space of the youth, it starts with their mindset. When you're shy, when you're not confident, you don't want to participate, no one is going to call upon you to participate anyway. That is why when you look at my first foundation of my party, I've put youthful leaders, not only for the position of youth, but even at the secretariat. My deputy secretary general is a youth. The one in charge of our diaspora list is a youth. And what we want to do to tap into the energies, we have the chapter of ICT, Innovation and Technology. We have the Farmers League. And the guy we just appointed may make you laugh, but he's an amazing guy. We found him on TikTok. I wonder whether you all know the guy called Katunda. When Katunda came, he said, for me, I'm a B3 dropout, but I'm 26. But I earn 67 million per month. Everyone first stood there. Wait a second. What does this young man do? He said, I have 3 acres of passion fruit here in Buama. Passion fruit takes 5 months to yield a harvest. 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. By December, you're yielding harvest. I rented this land, but what I get per week is between 3 and 4 sacks. And each sack in Kampala is 4 million. Is 1 million per sack, between 800,000 and 1 M. And every week from each acre, I harvest 4 sacks. So 4 sacks by 4 acres is how much per week? And look at, and then I asked him, how many people do you employ? He lined them up on TikTok. The guy said, listen, these are about 30, 40. They are the ones that help me till, look after the gardens, then pick up. But each one of them at least gets 100,000 as we wind up. So, trying to fight to create our space, not despising our efforts, but also presenting ourselves when the duty calls. The people we talk about in the NRM and how they built their revolution was built on the following. And this is my admiration for President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. That he identified youthful people, intellectuals at that, who were at university and who had a goal for the future. That is the same thing we are doing with the ecological party. This issue of the city arose. The rest, these ones who hoot and go around, they can sing for anyone, I can tell you. Because for them, it's not ideology. For them, it's impita out yaku. But what they say, Uganda A. Woo! Some other guy who passed you carries the next passenger. Our man, I've lived long enough in the city to understand that dynamic. Second, can we walk away from the politics of identity? In certain regions, it's still very difficult. By the nature of what we call godfathers and what we call opinion leaders in society. You go to an area, they say if the paramount chief doesn't endorse you, things will be difficult. So now the paramount chief is probably friendly or the religious leader with that same old guy who has been donating to the church or to the mosque. And now this young man, that's where the budget came in, is 1.8 billion. Then you ask him, what are you going to do? But you know, it is part of the fabric of our people, that our people say, wherever you go. Now, Massa will talk all the day, our power, they say, or to Kosotia. Now you can see it's the same language. They say that politics. Now even that is deep-rooted in schools, universities, sweetheart, wow, again. They don't want to listen to your issues. Now, we have an uphill task to transform the mindset of our citizens, to understand that the decision you make today will impact you for the rest of your life. Now, coming back to the issues of youth, and let me be quick.
In 2 minutes?
In 2 minutes, because I might need 2 hours.
2 minutes?
Yes. Let's look at the youthful person. Yes, in politics, they are there to participate. 70,000 plus villages have advertised positions, and just yesterday, they all participated in public governance at their level. It transforms to local councils. But how do we help them through that structure of the youth governance structure, to see that their ideas are brought henceforth through not only their representatives in parliament, youth representatives, but also the people that represent them generally as members of parliament. But also secondly, for them to have formulative ideas that can be captured in national transformation. Are we talking about education and its efficiency? What type of education system are we running? Is it building these youthful people to provide the basic infrastructure of the human resource of the country to be globally competitive? And it's a question we should pose to all of you. Do you think we are globally competitive? Yes or no? Are we globally competitive? I want to hear from the youth, yes or no? No. You can see it's muted. You feel the pressure, or what is that thing of pressure? Pressure crisis.
I am disappointed.
But that is the nature of our people. Because they are not assertive. You get annoyed with Kike, over yes or no? No. Hey, but these things are being crazy. The pressure is increasing. So now we all identify that probably the level of digitization compared to the global levels of digitization, we are still lagging. But the levels of acceptance for challenges to go into classes and have master's degree, improve on our levels of knowledge. We are there. Ugandans are there. They want to do it. Wherever they go, they compete very well. Maybe the system does not favor them. Now, talk about the youthful person who is striving to add value to themselves. as a parent, has gone through UPE and USE. Now exams are out. They have probably not merited for government sponsorship. What happens to that young person? These are the things we must address. How do they access education cheaply? If not, how do they go for retooling at tertiary institutions that are vocational free for them? Is university education free or subsidized? This issue that I've always had at universities, they cannot register because they did not pay some fees, is crippling some students and leading them to become dropouts. At the end of the day, mental health, drug addicts, etc. These are things we must address. These are things that touch the ordinary youth. The ordinary young man that rides on a boda, gets into an accident and goes to hospital, and before any hospital exercises, any form of first aid, first gives them back the phone. At where is this said? I remember when that thing happened, was there a scaffold at Zambia Hospital? Then someone said, now, the work ethic, Dr. Shamin, do you want to save lives? Oh, so those are the ordinary things that go on in youth lives. Now, after going out of school or after dropping out of school, how can the government help them, get them into productive employment? Retooling them, reskilling them, etc. Have we done that? Are there free innovation centers at all districts? Retooling centers at all districts? What is the demand for plumbers, electricians in this country and globally, where the youth can fit in and come back to be productive? That's why we are saying if you're joining our party, it's not for free. Go and join other parties. You can be a supporter of our party, but to be a member, you must pay, because we must check whether you're productive. Do you have an echo plan somewhere? Because we must find out, what does this young person of ours do? How can we help you? Youth mentorship programs that we have in our investment clubs at every level from village. There's a farmers league, innovation and ICT league, but also investment club, where now you sit together at a village level and you say, what can we do? Now that brings youth participation by playing the advisory role of what we call modern investment with their parents. The merging of these two to see to it that we don't have politics of
Identity,
but politics of
ideology and transformation. Thank you very much.
I wish I had much more time. There is a lot I would have wished to share with you, but the time is not on our side. And the Odomusa, I worked with in the Parliament. Can give me 2 minutes at least.
I will give you later, perhaps.
Just
but,
me over that.
okay,
thank you very much.
We are now going to do one thing. Time is certainly, I'm enjoying the discussion. I like listening to these people, especially the young people. I like listening to your voices, to your ideas.
I wanted to talk about the minimum wage, housing shortage, etc. There are many things I want to talk about, but that's fine. Next time.
What I will do, because time is always a limited resource. One, let me recognize the presence of Dr. Rwengabo. Rwengabo is one of our, he is a lecturer in Makerere University here, but he leads in facilitating the academy that is birthed by NIMD. This guy is here, the curriculum and the ideas, Primoz put us together, and the person who was leading us through all that nurturing was Dr. Rwengabo. So we recognize you and thank you for your humility. He's a great, great mind. You need to use him. Now, I'm going to start from Atuhaire, and I want us now to wind up. We need to close, unfortunately. And it will only be 2 minutes strictly for all of you. We have discussed, we have, to a great level, we have agreed with the professor on the kind of politics that we need. The mechanics may be different, how it can be done. You know, persons like Angelo says we just need to dismantle the entire system. And Belinda says we need to reinvigorate ways of you know, networking and all that. And of course, Sharon says the kind of education system we have is also problematic, but we have it for now, but we wish it could be changed, and so on and so forth. And you've heard what Honorable is saying. So he will prepare to give you also his 2 minutes way forward. And what I want the way forward to be about is for a general question to all of us and your thinking on how we can position the young people to be firm, effective, useful leaders now and for the future to transform Uganda, because that is the impact we are looking at, that our sight is clearly fixed on where can the best Uganda be, whatever you call it. You know, developers and thinkers, economists talk of Vision 2040, whenever you want, whichever deadline you want to give it, but think of the future of Uganda. So, Sharon, I mean, unfortunately, I'm starting with you. 2 minutes, and I will be strict on the 2 minutes because we don't now have time.
I don't think multi-party democracy is bad, because every individual has a different ideology. Everyone has a different way of thinking. And yes, what unites us is that if I think the Ecological Party of Uganda is where I align, then I should be able to go there. But if I think that the NRM is where I fit the best, then I should be also given a chance to belong there. So multi-party democracy is the way to go, because other countries have it and it's working for them. So if I don't align with the NRM, then where do I go? I mean, I need somewhere to be able to align with. But then, how do we have transformational youth with time? It starts with us. I think the song has been sung from the time we came here yesterday, and I don't think we're going to stop now, is that the youth have to be actively involved. And by active involvement, we don't talk about being spectators. No, is that if there's a position, the youth have to take up these places. But also, the old guns have to also create space in their mindset for the youth. Yeah, I think that the old guns should also believe that we have something great that we can bring to the table. Back then, they used to believe that the young people are just young. No, the young people now are educated, the young people are informed now, they are very active, and they can participate and bring change to the societies in which they belong. So yes, the old people should believe that the youth can have a place, because we've been in places where they just put you on a table to look at them discuss. I think that is a big problem. That you are part of a big panel, but your job is to fill the youth place, but not to contribute. I think that's a very big problem. But for us to also be involved, if they are reading the budget, we should know the nitty-gritties. We should know what are our country's priorities. Being informed is the way to go, because there's no way you're going to challenge the status quo if you do not know what is going on. If you don't know the parties that are there, then how would you align yourself with any of the parties? But also, we're talking about the indigenous. Back then, it was not about the 51-49%. I know that the old people will agree with me that back then it was about consensus building, that the leaders were accountable. The community chief would come back to his people for accountability, but now our leaders do not come back. We should be able to seek accountability from our leaders. And yeah, adopt a few things from the indigenous ways. We'll be able to transform this our country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's have Belinda. 2 minutes.
Currently, the median age in Uganda is 15 to 16. So to each and every person here, if we are speaking way forward, whatever you're doing, if it doesn't solve the needs or shape the future of a 15 to a 16-year-old, you're leaving this country nowhere, and you're leaving it in shatters and shambles, and we don't know what is going to be passed over to the next generation. So this is what I think as I conclude. How do we organize or position young people for what I call functionality? Start from the grassroots. I started an organization called Their Foundation, and I'm looking at secondary school students to university. Why? The middle, if they are to calculate and line us all, is going to be a 15 to a 16-year-old. That is where dreams are shaped. That is where perspective and the fire and dream to be a leader is started. He shared with us the story of a 15-year-old, 16-year-old who has 4 children. That is the age bracket, the age range that actually needs attention. Not these people who are actually already at university. Some of them are beyond repair, but are still being repaired, you know? But can we start to address these structural challenges from the roots down? But also, as I conclude, is strategy. I'm a Christian, and the Bible tells us, be as wise as a serpent, but as harmless as a dove. Pick out the strategy that is going to push you. Earlier I said, if you're Team NRM and you can lobby for us there, we need funds to push this, please go lobby. But when you come on the point of harming, do not disarm. Let us unite. Let us stand together and build a strategy and a forum that is going to support every Ugandan. Then still on that, can we learn how our views brought to the front? We are not going to just quarrel and do this, but with strategy, and I think the Academy has been teaching that, there is much more that can be done. And to the graduates today, my message would be, how empowered are you to take back that to the villages, to the people that have not had these opportunities? Structures are being formed. How empowered are you to go back and say, now my colleagues, friends, this is what has happened. Can I support you? Can I give you some of the lectures that I have studied? And then some of our leaders here also, something I don't want to forget, is that when we talk about, earlier someone commented on something and I noted it, was an issue of people going for alcohol and all of people being able to afford 1,000. The generation we are in is distressed, disgruntled, and what you can afford is to suppress all that you're feeling, emotions and the suffering, by blacking out. People need help, leaders in all that you do. Mental health is key. Someone is buying a circuit of 1,000 sleeping hungry because they would better sleep and not feel the hunger than know that their children need to eat or maybe are failing to go to school. So can we address the root cause issues, and can we advocate for each and every Ugandan and have one heart for a better and a brighter Uganda? Thank you very much.
I certainly like the disruptive thinking, the disruptive innovation, and I was looking at the young faces that you said are beyond repair. Well, I think there is a lot of possibility in them yet. Let me bring in Madam President Shamim, your last 2 minutes of glory.
Thank you so much, Charles, and everyone that is here. For my concluding remarks, I would say that it's time for us as a generation to identify, most importantly, where is it that we want to be. It is time for us to know what kind of hospitals do we want, what kind of education we want to see our children have, what kind of infrastructure do we wish to see, what kind of jobs do we wish to do. It's not enough for us to say that it is time for us to take charge when we do not even know where it is that we want to take the people that we want to take charge of. So it is time for us to go back to the drawing table, have it clearly stated that this is where we want to be, irrespective of which political party you subscribe to, irrespective of where you belong, because I believe that unemployment is not selective, that whether you belong to the NRM or to the NUP. If you're to be unemployed, you'll be unemployed.
If you are to go to a hospital and there is no medicine, we don't reserve medicine for NRM supporters or for NUP supporters. If the medicines are out of stock, they're out of stock. If the education is poor, it is poor, irrespective of where. And most importantly for me, I think it is time for us to have a shift from having young people being pushed to discuss only issues that are seen to affect only young people. It is time for us to actually have a stand on policy. It is time for us to have a stand on issues that affect the country entirely, because at the end of the day, we are 78% of the population. So I would appreciate if I got invited to a space that was discussing the coffee bill and I'm giving my perspective, because at the end of the day, it is still us that are going to be affected by these policies. I would appreciate if we started to have discussions around the minimum wage policy, if we started to have conversations around so many issues that affect our country as a whole, and not just issues around elections, special interest groups, because I believe that we are no longer a special interest group, we are the majority group. So the old guard are now the special interest group. So in conclusion, I would say that as young people, and it is a clarion call for all of us to get together and start to have policy statements that are tabled before Parliament. It is time for us to take up positions beyond just the village elections. It is time for us to step up and take up positions to whichever level we can. If you're not at the table, you're definitely going to be on the menu. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I like that. Angelo is our next with his concluding remarks. We take note of Mr. Prosper Mubangizi. He is a researcher, policy analyst, he's a governance and youth inclusion expert. He is most importantly a facilitator for this academy as well. And Prosper, we recognize your presence and thanks for coming. We can clap for him. Angelo, your 2 minutes. Way forward.
Okay. First, I congratulate the graduates. Congratulations. A couple of last things. First, take some personal responsibility. I think that's where all change begins. It's so important that before you start looking at what you could do outside of yourself, take responsibility. I say this in all humility, by the way, because as leaders, I am part of a leadership academy called the Leo Africa Institute. I was head of faculty there. One of the things we teach is that you are sufficient, you are valid. When you have ideas, be bold about it. You don't need extra validation outside it. There's a tendency for us as Africans often to look outside. And these days,